Hello friends, welcome back to part 11 of my 2022 Q3 Tesla earnings forecast video review series. Of course it's a video, you're on YouTube. Maybe you're an audio-only listener. If so, I apologize for the audio-only episode you're about to listen to. There's a lot of visuals that I'll be referencing during this video. But let me go ahead and bring up my desktop and bring up Excel to where we left off at the end of part 10 of this series, which was the first major section of my forecast model, which is where I forecast production and deliveries. The next major section that you need after you have production and deliveries, that's not enough things to make an income statement. Next we need to know what is the revenue associated with those deliveries. And a good way of forecasting that is to build up to it by multiplying the deliveries by the revenue per delivery. So I already have the deliveries at a very detailed level. It makes sense to match that same by model and by site detail. And instead of just guessing at total revenue per model by site, I'm going to build up to that using as detailed a methodology as I think makes sense to use, which is to just ask the question, okay, when people go to buy a Tesla on the website or on their phone, what questions is Tesla asking them about what they want to buy? And what do I think the take rates are on those options, the optional extras? So figuring out what those take rates and prices are gets us a weighted average mix of the revenue per model by site that we can use to multiply all of those across, add them all up, and get to total automotive revenue. So let me bring up the Tesla website to show you what I mean. And we will use the Model S as our example because it's probably the easiest one to understand. The oldest Tesla model still in production, Model S, began in 2012. It's gone through a lot of changes since then. Most notably the Plaid line upgrades that happened over a year ago. So if you go to the Model S Design Studio on Tesla's website, be sure you've selected purchase price and not potential savings if you want these to add up right. So what's the first thing we see here? We see that the base price of the Model S, the lowest price you can get, is $104,990. Well, what's the base price in my model here? Well, I have lower amounts in here for the Fremont Model S. What's going on? You can't really buy a Model S for only 90 grand, James. Well, that's the current price for those placing orders today. Tesla has been raising the price over time, and they've gone through a bunch of different prices over the last year, and people have been placing orders at those different prices and then waiting for Tesla to make and deliver their Model S. So what we see here in Q2 is that I had a mix for the base price of some people purchasing at $94,990, some purchasing at $81,500, and some purchasing at $99,900. And then I'm multiplying each of those by take rates. So 35% at this price, 40% at that price, 25% at that price. In this case, that's not a mix. This needs to add up to 100%. So 35 and 25 makes 60, and 40 makes 100. So we have 100% of our orders accounted for at one of these three prices. So how does this change in Q3? Well, I expect some of the orders that were placed at $104,990 to get delivered. Only 10% of the deliveries in Q3 I expect will have been ordered at that new higher base price. But as time goes by, you can see in Q4, 20% of the orders will have been at that new price that you see reflected on the website today. Then next year, it'll be half of the orders in Q1, because it'll take about that long to get those Model S orders filled. Then it'll be about 3/4 of the orders filled in Q2 of next year. And then a year from now, I have $104,990 as being the only base price. And then you see it stabilize there. I'll need to update these when Tesla modifies prices again in the future, so I don't expect these to stay clean unless Tesla leaves the price alone for a lot longer than they normally do. Okay, so we've made it one row into one model so far. Let's flip back over to this order configuration page and say, well, what else can you do here? There's a Model S Plaid here for another 30 grand. So this is a tri-motor all-wheel drive option that would take your total price up to $137,990. The price of that has also been changing over time. So I'll show you the performance package here is down the road a little bit. So at one time, so I expect most people won't take this. So 65% of people will say no, I'll stick with the base. And you'll get the other 10% or 20%. This is actually a 70. It doesn't matter what number you put here because you're multiplying it by 0. So I'm just saying, hey, 10% of my mix will pay 50 grand for a performance upgrade. 20% will be paying only $36,000 upgrade. So that's the assumption for that piece of the mix. What's the next question they ask when you configure a Model S? It's what color paint do you want? If you want white, it's included in the price. But most people will want red because red looks awesome, which is why red costs $2,500 and these other colors that are less popular cost $1,500. So what's my paint line say here? I'm using the same paint assumptions for all quarters because I don't think paint is one of those things that changes very much over time. I've got 20% of people sticking with the free color. Come on, if you're buying a Model S, you want to get the color you want, right? Not the one that's just because it's free. Then 40% will pick one of those three middle colors, and the other 40% will take the premium. What do they call this? Red multi-coat? Yeah, red multi-coat. It sure looks sharp. And fast, right? And if you're getting this Model S Plaid, come on, you got to get the red one, don't you? All right, so I'll put that back to the free option. The next question here is wheels. Do you want the Tempest wheels, 19-inch included, or do you want the 21-inch Arachnid wheels? Those are $4,500. So there have been other wheel options in the past that were at $1,500, and I still have some of those orders getting filled here. But probably we'll just get more people taking the free wheels and less people taking the $4,500 wheels, I have assumed at 20%. Then for the interior, I've got 55% taking the free interior and 45% taking one of the options. So there's a cream and walnut interior for $2,000 or a black and white interior for $2,000. Or the all-black interior is included. So that's what that option config assumption is about. Then we have full self-driving here. So we know full self-driving doesn't cost $6,000. So what is going on here and what's going on here, I guess? So in this cell, I've got a $12,000 price point times a 45% take rate. FSD has been 12 grand for a while. And if I scroll down, the way Tesla presents these to you is, hey, you can pay for enhanced autopilot for 6 grand, or you can pay for full self-driving for 12 grand, which includes the 6 grand. So I'll show you what I mean. If I add this, my price goes up to $110,990. Then if I add this, my price only goes up to $116,990 because this option includes all functionality of basic autopilot and enhanced autopilot, so you can't add this back, or if you do, it removes this one. So that's how that's working, and that's the FSD option, and that brings us to cash buyer ASP. So these things are adding up to what the buyer thinks they're signing up to pay for when they configure their car. So it shows them a total that when I average everybody's Model S orders together, I get an average of $113,672 per Model S order placed in Q2, and that's going to rise in Q3 quite a lot due to these higher base prices. You can see that's the line that's increasing by the most here. We've got a little growth here, but most of this growth is coming from the base config because the prices have been going up and because Tesla is filling those orders, and expect that to continue into the future, right? With these cash buyer average selling prices continuing to rise into next year. So what's going on below that? Why am I not done already? Well, if you want to get to total revenue per delivery, there's a few adjustments you need to make from what the cash buyer thinks they're paying. The first of those is that people who are leasing Model S's are not giving you this much money when they buy the car from you. They're giving you less than that. So you need to back out the leased buyers from this, and they're about 14% of your sales. So I've got a 14% multiplier in here, times this amount, times 0.6. We expect to have a 60% of the 14% of the cash buyer ASP credit against sales needed to get us down to the average revenue per vehicle. So there's a couple of other things here which I guess I should talk about right away. Destination and delivery fee, can't get away from that, you have to pay it. Regulatory credits are not being paid by the buyer, they're being paid by competitors who did not produce enough electric vehicles to comply with applicable law. So rather than pay the government fees for non-compliance with laws requiring them to produce green vehicles, they are purchasing extra green credits, regulatory credits, that Tesla doesn't need because Tesla only sells electric vehicles, right? Tesla will never have to pay those fees, no matter how many regulatory credits they sell, because Tesla has no combustion engine vehicles that need to be offset. So there's revenue for that, which I expect to be small on a per vehicle basis. And then the other is the everything else, which I've included as FSD deferral revenue. So this is full self-driving purchased at time of delivery. There's another piece of FSD, which is, well, what if people upgrade to FSD on a Tesla they already own during this quarter? So in some prior quarter, they paid for a vehicle that didn't have FSD, and then in this quarter, they decide to purchase FSD. We're probably going to get a whole lot of that in Q3. My forecast was cooked and published already before I found out that Tesla announced an increase in the price of FSD to $15,000 in North America. So I imagine a lot of buyers are getting their orders in today on that design studio that we just looked at, or if they were on the fence about buying FSD on a Tesla they already own, they went ahead and pulled the trigger to pay only $12,000 for that instead of the $15,000 or more they'll need to pay for FSD in the future. So there's also over-the-air upgrades for stuff like acceleration boost, data plans, whatever else. And this is also where the FSD deferred revenue offset sits for the portion of FSD that has not been delivered to customers already. What do I mean by that? I mean, in the past, we had negative numbers on this line because most of the FSD sales at time of delivery were being deferred until the future date at which Tesla delivered those features, but Tesla has been delivering FSD features increasingly as time went on, so now that negative has flipped to a positive. So what do you get when you add all of these together? You get the total revenue per delivery associated with this model at this site. Hope that all makes sense. Then right below that, I've got just an informative metric for me to see, hey, how much revenue is this model going to produce if you take this amount and multiply it by the deliveries that we expect for this model. So way up at the top of the page, we saw that in Q3 we expect 11,350 deliveries for Model 3. Now I'll make you dizzy scrolling back down the page. So this $1,268,000,000 is just taking this revenue per vehicle times the number of deliveries and then dividing it by a million to put it into millions of dollars. So 1,268 million, or less confusingly worded, $1.268 billion worth of revenue for this model at this site. All right. Then you just repeat the process. So same deal for Fremont Model X. You've got the same kinds of options, right? Paint, performance package, wheels, interior, full self-driving. You've got some of those being leased vehicles. You've got this much revenue per delivery on average, and when you multiply it by the deliveries, you get about $1 billion worth of revenue for that model, which is a big improvement over the previous 2 quarters for Model X as it continues to ramp up and scale the newly refreshed Plaid Model X out of Fremont. Then we have the Model 3 here. So this base price quite a bit lower than the Model S and the Model X. I've got these doing a little different look at this. So here you saw 39,990 times 19%. Plus 43,990 times 81%. So most of the people were paying the higher price here. So I've got these base amounts increasing a little over time to get up to the 46,990. Let's see what the design studio says Model 3 ought to be going for these days. If I delete this, and then I put the L back and the 3, and I hit enter. Here's the Model 3. So again, it's going to default to potential savings over here. You have to remember to click purchase price if what you want to see is 46,990. I flip back over here. There's the 46,990 that I expect people placing orders today to get their Model 3s in a couple of quarters, and for that price to remain unchanged unless Tesla changes it. But some of the people getting their deliveries now ordered at lower prices previously and have been waiting to get their car. Hopefully that makes sense. Paint options a little less expensive for the Model 3. The Model 3 Performance, $62,990 here. Long range you can't get right now, available in 2023 it says. So it's either 46 or 63, so a pretty steep premium there for the Performance package. Let me set that back. Then you got some paint options here, same as for Model S. Kind of unusual to see Midnight Silver Metallic for free there. 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000 for your paint options here. Wheels. They've defaulted me to these 19-inch sport wheels. I'm going to put that back to the Aero wheels, because of course I am. I'm James Stevenson. I have the world's most efficient Model 3, and I want the Aero wheels to be on there to get better range. Then for interior options, you can get black and white for $1,000. So those are the options that you see as take rates times prices in my model here. Now for the full self-driving, the take rate is a lot lower on Model 3 than it is on Model S and Model X, because you have a lot more budget-oriented, value-conscious people doing the Tesla stretch into a luxury vehicle they would otherwise not have purchased. So fewer of them are taking FSD at this point in time, but we expect that that will change as more people realize what a good value full self-driving is. So that gets us to our cash buyer ASP of about 51 grand, and then a few of these adjustments here. Cash buyer ASP, leased vehicles impact, regulatory credits, other. Same type of rigmarole there. So Fremont Model Y, biggest difference here is the higher base configuration price. So I'll come back over here, and why not look at what Model Y is going for in the design studio these days. I'll click here to get to the purchase price. $65,990. So that'll be a future price. I'm going to have to up these. I guess they upped that another $1,000. Unless they've gone ahead and defaulted me to some more expensive option down here. Yeah, I can get these for free. Kind of sneaky that Tesla is defaulting you to different wheels. And then you can add the FSD or the enhanced autopilot at the bottom. Okay, so I have a $65,990 purchase price still up top. But it's my total price also now. Alright, so I got to go update that in my model. And people are paying less than that now because the price was $52,990 not all that long ago. Then it rose to $56,990 and then $62,990 before landing at the $65,990 we see today. Performance, not very much more than long range. So they've been raising the price of this one, but not this one, I guess. Which is why we don't see very much performance package revenue per vehicle here. And that's the way you forecast this, right? Same idea. So Tesla will make almost $4 billion worth of Fremont Model Y sales in Q3 is what I'm forecasting. No Roadsters yet. That'll be coming in a few years. Next we get to hop a plane across the Pacific over the North Pole to Shanghai, where we see $42,911 base price. So can I even? Well, I'm not gonna keep wasting time. You get the idea with the design studio and what's going on there. So these are denominated in yuan, Chinese currency. So I have to make a few more adjustments to these when I put them in. But you can see we're looking at a $44,000 base price for the Shanghai Model 3 going forward, with you know, the same kind of idea for option take rates and prices, getting you to cash buyer ASPs, then leased vehicles, particularly on the exports to Europe. You've got more leasing activity, and total revenue per delivery, which is rising over time. So even though this is the most affordable Tesla you can buy today, revenue per delivery is still pretty decent, and $3 billion revenue contribution expected from the Shanghai Model 3. The Model Y, though, really is the cash cow for Tesla out of Shanghai, especially because that factory can build them so affordably at low cost per vehicle, low variable cost per additional vehicle produced in China. And there's those amounts. I do have a placeholder in here for a Shanghai robotaxi, which I believe Tesla is going to announce, but they won't be selling any of those anytime soon. Potentially, they may not sell them at all. Those may be for export to countries where Tesla will operate its own fleet of robotaxis. Maybe I'll do a video about that in the future, but I've got a place reserved in my model for that. Now to Europe and the Berlin Model Y, which I list first because it'll be first. It is the first to be produced. So you see these very similar to what's happening at Fremont, with performance package mix a lot higher early on and then falling off as they produce different kinds of configs out of Germany. So there's those revenues per vehicle growing over time from maybe $1 billion this quarter to $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 billion over the next 5 quarters. Really pulling their own weight out of Berlin as time goes by. Then kind of the same story out of Giga Texas with their Model Y. And these revenues per vehicle are what I expect in my forecast. Kind of the same story here with those revenues growing over time. I'm going to try to not repeat myself too much. Cybertruck, I don't expect any to be sold in Q1 or Q2, and then you can really see, well, I expect a teeny tiny amount to be sold in Q2. only $31 million worth, so Tesla will lose money on that for sure at the cost required to produce vehicles in a factory, and then maybe more than $1 billion worth of Cybertrucks sold in Q4 of 2023, more than a year from now. And for Semi, really small numbers again, being expected for a long time, with Tesla losing money making the Semi all of next year. And then I guess I'll scroll over here to show you what I expect for Cybertruck and for Semi to really start making money in 2024, with Semi maybe not even making very much money in 2024. Maybe the deliveries will surprise me, but I think they're going to be low. Okay, so that brings us to the totals for ASP. And this is the weighted average of all of the vehicles. And when I say weighted average, you can't just take the total revenue per vehicle for each of the models and average those together. You have to weight that average based on how many deliveries there were. So whichever kinds of models you were delivering the most of get more weight, and whichever models you were selling the least of, like Model S and Model X, get the least weight in that average, which is why these are a lot closer to the Model Y's revenue per delivery than they are to Model S or Model X. With Fremont's average being higher than that, Shanghai's being lower, where they only make Model 3 and Model Y, Berlin being higher, only making Model Y, and Texas being about the same. Also, for the time being, only making Model Y, and then into the future, that's gonna rise. With Cybertruck and Semi being more expensive. And I may have to take the Cybertruck pricing up a lot from where I have it right now if that's what Tesla decides to do with it versus the prices at which people were reserving Cybertrucks when reservations were available. So that totals up to the total dollars for each model. So lumping together the Model Ys produced at all 4 sites into this number gets you a much bigger number than we saw above. Here are the least revenue amounts that I'm going to need for my income statement, because those are shown separately. And then this section combines those together. So $21.3 billion worth of total automotive and leasing revenue is what I expect in Q3, with that number growing as time goes by. And man, a lot of automotive revenue in 2023, close to $150 billion is what I have in my forecast right now. Then I need to talk about energy here. So for Tesla's energy division, you need to forecast how much solar Tesla will deploy. So that's production, solar panels, solar tiles, and then how much battery storage products Tesla is going to deploy, megapacks, power walls, that sort of thing, along with how much money you expect to be made off of each watt or each watt hour, depending. And then I have revenue projections by product: solar panel, solar roof, Powerwall, Powerpack, Megapack, and other, to produce a total Tesla energy revenue forecast here. You also need to forecast services and other revenue. So I've got a long, complicated formula here that shows it depends on how many vehicles there are in the fleet and how much out-of-warranty repair expense you're going to need, plus some other stuff to grow it from the levels we've seen it forecast or reported at in the past. So you see services and other revenue expected to grow over time. And that brings us to total revenue, which is a good place for me to stop this video and say, if you've enjoyed this video, click the like button. That really helps my channel, helps people to find the content that I am producing. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to support me on Patreon, that info is available. And I will see you in part 12 of my forecast review series.